Welcome to HR After Dark, where we solve the people problems that are keeping you up at night, with your host, Kayla Williams. Good morning, and welcome back to HR After Dark. Today, we're going to be talking about your leadership pipeline and what that looks like. We all know it has been a rough few years. Recruiting and leadership development hasn't gotten any easier. And this is for our for-profit and our nonprofit sectors. It hasn't gotten easier out there, guys. So today, I just want to go over a few things. Now, before we jump into it, um, everyone has specific things that work for their industry or their company for recruiting. So what I'm going to go over today, it might not work for you, but what I would like you to do is take these as guidelines. These are thought points whenever you're developing your recruiting plan, when you're developing your leadership development plan. These are the things that you should be thinking about. Whether you execute it this way or not, you should have these plans in place. So, why do we develop a leadership pipeline? Why do we develop a recruiting plan for our company? Because hiring is not just hiring. You want to create a culture, right, for your company. That culture, it not only tells your employees who you are, what to expect, and tells them what's going to happen, but it also tells the public. It actually tells the public who you are, and it shows them what type of company you are, because there is a difference in those two statements. And as we go through this, you need to think to yourself, um, is this plan that I'm putting together, does it match my company culture? Is it created specifically for my company to grow us? Is it sustainable? Sorry. Is it sustainable? And so this is what we're going to go over today. Uh, I love this. I'm going to actually start this off with a bit of a quote. Um, an inspirational culture and an intentional plan are the foundations of building a leadership pipeline or in recruiting pipeline. And I love that because, again, we're talking about culture. Your culture is a huge part of how you recruit and promote within your company. And whenever you create an intentional plan going forward, it creates that sustainability that we were just talking about. So let's go through this here. There are different phases of leadership development. Um, and the first one that we're going to look at is going to be developing your ideal team player. Okay. It's kind of like in marketing, whenever we develop our character, our ideal customer, right? And what you do is you're taking whatever plans that you put in place for marketing, selling, anything, and you say, how would it fit to our ideal customer? Would this bring in our ideal customer? And so you're taking the same concept and applying it to your leadership development and your recruiting plans. Who is your ideal team player? What specific characteristics are you looking for? Personalities, talents. It goes beyond what is in their resume. You can have someone with a perfect resume that looks like they would be the perfect fit for your organization, and they can come in and actually create chaos and instability. If they don't fit, if they don't have the same motivations as your organization. So going through this, I like to highlight at least five, excuse me, at least five characteristics or traits that, I'm looking for within my ideal candidate. And these might be things like, someone who is curious. All right. So maybe we're looking for someone who asks questions, who might push us outside of our box because we're developing company and we're making changes. Someone that is flexible. Okay. Again, maybe my company is one that changes on the daily. Maybe we're doing different things, different projects. And so you need someone that is flexible, someone that in the morning could be holding a team meeting and in the afternoon could be handling a client crisis. You want someone that maybe you're looking for someone that is humble. Maybe that's a part of your culture. We see this a lot, in our nonprofit sectors. Maybe you're looking for someone that is humble, that is not going to come in and try to overpower your team, but instead of being a team player. Or maybe you're looking for someone that is more independent. Whether or not you have a full team or you're working solo, maybe you're looking to hire on someone that has that independence for that particular position. So whenever you're putting together, this almost like a wish list, right? So whenever you're putting together this wish list, you have your job description, of course, and you're looking at how you want them to work with your organization, your team, individual. Really think about that before going into interviewing a candidate or even looking at promoting from within, which of course we always highly recommend. So our next phase is going to go into how are we training this person? Okay, this is going to be developing our training for this person, for this position. Okay, so we have our ideal team player. We have our, job description. We know what they're going to be doing in this company for us. What does our training look like? Could someone come in to this position, say we, or could they be promoted from within into this position and they have a training plan in place where they not only know what to expect throughout that training plan, but they know who to go to afterwards or what their resources are. And this is very detrimental. This is very, very important for companies because I feel like this is a spot that is commonly overlooked, or the training plan tends to be, okay, well, we're going to bring them in and, Jimmy Bob is going to train them. Okay, what is Jimmy Bob training them on? What are our bullet points there? What do they need to know for this position? And more times than not, we see this lack of training and lack of preparation whenever we are promoting from within, because there is an assumption of this person has knowledge of the company, right? They know who we are, they know what we do. And so, even though this is not a lateral move, there's a lack of, I think, I'm trying to figure out maybe the exact wording here, guys. There's a lack of training expectation, might be what I'm looking for. If I think of it later, I'll let you know. But but so the question lies, do you have a training plan for not only bringing on your new employees, but whenever you promote from within? What is their training plan? Because a lot of times those are left behind. So going into our next phase, we have to develop a system or a process to assess how all of this is going, to assess and hold accountable our recruiting, our promoting, and our training. So who does that at your organization? Excuse me, guys. Who does that at your organization? And whenever they do that, how are they measuring the success of these steps, right? And sometimes I feel like there are two different levels here. There's a very base level of this assessment of, you know, maybe we promoted someone from within and we can just see that they're doing a good job. We see them working hard. We see them, maybe going through our training program. They don't have a lot of questions. That's your surface level assessment here. Whenever you dig deeper, and this is where you really get into the nitty gritty of things, you have to have more of an invasive assessment to make sure, you know, you're looking at your quality of leadership, your quality of training, and your quality of your plans that you have put in place. And what this looks like is maybe you're looking at the numbers. It has to be measurable. So maybe you're looking at the numbers. How quickly are they going through the training program, and how quickly do they want to? Do we want them to? And that means not that I want them to complete it as fast as humanly possible, right? We don't want them flying through. We want them spending time in it. We want them to ask questions. We want them to find holes in our training plan, right? We want them to find holes in our recruiting. We want them to say, hey, you didn't go over this. You didn't explain what this means or how this happens. We want them to find these holes because when they do, it betters us. When they do, we can say, oh, you know what? You're right. This needs to happen. We need to put a plan in place for this. We need to address this concern. Okay. And that shouldn't necessarily lie on the I say necessarily, that shouldn't lie on whoever we have recruited. There should be someone that they can go to that assesses this and assesses them, the program, and who all of this, goes through. And a lot of times, that does look like the HR person or your recruiter. It just kind of depends on exactly how your organization is set up to assess and hold accountable. Going on to the next phase, we have, it's almost, I want to call this an initiation. So whether you have recruited a new person or whether you have brought on someone from within into a leadership role, you kind of have an initiation, right? They need to be challenged while also having that safety net at first. This will give them, particularly within leadership roles, this gives them an independence. And this might look like, I'm trying to think of a specific example. I had one earlier and then I realized it just didn't fit. So, but what this might look like is giving them even maybe like a capstone project, that gives a simulated pressure to them, and so that they can lean on the resources that they have, and they can have that safety net there while they're still, developing and training. But they also start, first off, getting an idea of the workplace, and the job that they're actually doing and issues that they might run into. This also tells them who they can go to. So if they're working on a project, and they need resources for something in particular, they start learning exactly who those resources are within your company. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't really qualify for someone who's been promoted from within, but a lot of times it does, especially if you are with an organization, I'll say that it has more than maybe 15 employees. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the team can know each other, but they don't know who to go to for what exactly. Um, And, I might even get a few eye rolls on that one. And that's okay. That's okay. But these are things that we have seen. And you don't know what you don't know until you're there, right? Until you're in the position and you're saying, oh man, I maybe I was trained on this, but that was at the beginning of my training. And now it's 6 months later. And I can't remember. I can't remember this process. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. Um, and they have to have that support because something that is tremendously lacking, I think, today, and there are so many factors that have gone into this. And, I might even do another podcast episode on this, is lacking of support in leadership or for leadership, not in. Okay. I think that leaders today have been have been kind of just, trial by fire. They've been thrown into a lot of these positions, and they've done a great job of trying to hold tight and to make things happen. But that's not what we want to do, right? That's not a sustainable plan for anyone, is to bring on leadership and just throw them in. That's not a sustainable plan. That is how you get burnt out leaders who, you know, don't stay. That definitely falls into your retention rate right there. Leaders need support. And, whenever leaders are supporting, or I mean, sorry, if when leaders have been supported, and then those leaders are supporting your team. So you have created this culture of support, accountability, and then they support your team and your team support your clients or your customers, whatever you're calling them at your company or your nonprofit. And when those customers are supported, it's cyclical, right? When those customers are supported, they stick around. And so that is where this, in this initiation phase, I know you feel like I've gone off on a tangent here, but it all leads back whenever you go into this initiation phase with your leaders. This is really where they are not the only ones being tested. Your company is too. This is where you really see, okay, did our recruiting work, whether from within or whether externally? Did our recruiting work? Did our development and training work? Did we assess this? So these are all the previous steps. Did we assess this properly and see if we found any holes? And then you're gonna, you guys are probably gonna be like, oh man, she's adding more steps to this, right? But then that goes into the step after initiation, which is another assessment. So you're gonna assess, initiate, and then assess, guys, because this is where all throughout this progress, you should be talking to whoever's going through this pipeline to, get feedback. But this is really an important step right here, is to bring them in throughout this initiation, and especially afterwards, and get feedback from them. And you should be creating a culture where they aren't afraid to give that feedback, where you happily accept it, so that, I say happily, we all feel some sort of way whenever we're criticized, but you should be accepting this feedback and then doing something with it. So correcting things going forward, and just know that this feedback might not even come right away. You might sit down with this person in the pipeline and you might say, they might say, excuse me, this was great. I feel like it went fantastic and I loved it. And then a couple months down the line, they might come back and say, hey, am I still okay to give some feedback on my training? Because I realize after working in my position, where we might be able to make improvements. And you have to be open to that because they just went through it and you didn't. And they might be able to see with their fresh eyes to this, exactly where there's some holes that you need to plug. And that brings me into really our last phase of this, which is to celebrate. You need to be celebrating them and you guys. And this really should be something that is public, something that is, maybe even a shout out on your social media. Welcome to our new PR manager, so and so. This should be something that is structured. It's in your plan, right? It's in your pipeline for your internal and external recruiting. Is a celebration of whoever has come on, whoever has you know gone through this pipeline. And this is really important. This is very, very important because remember, you have a culture at your work and you want to develop a culture that celebrates its employees. It's a part of the support, you know. People, they want to be recognized and they want to feel like they are a part of the organization. And whenever you're telling them congratulations, like, and you're announcing to that they have been promoted into this position or that they've been hired into this position, it does make them feel like they are a better part of the team. You want them to be a part of this organization and to really tie in and support your company and be excited for your company or your nonprofit. However, then this is what you do. You show them that appreciation. You highlight them. And I was just using social media as an example. This might look different for wherever you are and whatever your company is. I know some places who they don't really, shout it out on social media, but they might have a little team get together, whether that's in person or virtual, and it doesn't have to be long. 30 minutes, 30 minutes out of everyone's year that they are, taking their time out to maybe hop on a virtual team party call to say, as we know, so and so's been going through this pipeline. They have completed this. Let's, give them a round of applause as we continue to support them as a company and, welcome to the team. And that is incredibly important. It's incredibly important for your company, for your culture, for your team, and for the individual. So, going through this, through each step of this, again, I just want to remind to ask yourself 2 questions. How is the organization handling this? And how is your candidate handling this? And remember that intentionality is really, really key. I heard this quote recently that said, if the environment is polluted, then you're going to get polluted leaders, right? So intentionality is key here. What is your environment? What is your plan? What are you doing? And throughout this podcast, I have asked you guys a lot of questions, and there are a lot of questions that, as I'm asking you, I'm not giving you the answer to because it is specific to you. These are questions that you need to be asking yourself. And as we go forward, of course, you can always contact us at JER HR Group for recruiting advice, for HR services to assist you in all of this. And I shamelessly put this plug in. Why? Because this is put on by JER HR Group, but also because I do firmly believe that companies need support and your leaders need support. And something that our HR services is really, really good at is developing and helping you put that together. Now, I'm going to leave you off on one of my favorite quotes, though, and that is stop putting gum on a bullet hole. Take proper care of what is going on. Face your challenges for today and for your company. And if you can't face them today, put it on your agenda to face them whenever you can, because they're not going to go away. And on that, I want to thank everyone for joining me on our second episode of our relaunch of HR After Dark. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week.